Hello and welcome to another episode of On The Topic. And this week, I'm going to hook you in. You're going to watch loads of episodes, only for me to let you down. I'm Alex.
And I'm going to be delivering some unfavourable, unpopular opinions on those really disappointing finales, in my opinion. I'm Dan.
And Dan, it's been a couple of weeks. And we've got a banging episode as always lined up. I mean, this one's been sitting in my drafts for a while, so I'm looking forward to getting this one to see the light of day. But before we get into that, what have you been up to? Share with me and the listener anything of exciting news or anything you've been up to in the last couple of weeks. Have you been to the footy? How's Pompey doing?
No, I haven't been to the footy, but we're not doing that great at the moment. We're in a bit of a rut. But do you know what? I've got every faith. But, you know, our football fans are less patient than I am, or some of them are anyway. But do you know what? It's okay. We're playing tonight, actually. We've got Plymouth Argyle. I can just about hear the faint crowds,
of course,
over the roofs of Fratton. But otherwise, apart from the football, not a great deal. Working for the man, which sort of tires me out. Ching. Otherwise, I mean, pop culture-wise, I've been diving into, as I mentioned in the previous episode, Vigil on BBC.
Oh, yes.
Murder Mystery on a Submarine. It's fantastic. It's just hit a climatic penultimate episode. And if anyone can get access to it, definitely check that out. Silent Witnesses started again on the BBC. I'm a big fan. Again, what happens with Silent Witness? You get 2 episodes per week, Monday and a Tuesday night, and those 2 episodes will be a story. So you get a... Oh, right, it's just bookended. It's complete storyline in 2 episodes. Yeah, I mean, you get little stories sort of interwoven into each series, but each one is its own entity, which is quite cool. Okay. Netflix, I've been watching Sex Education Series 3, which has just dropped. 5 episodes in, I've got 3 left. I thought it was 10. We were talking off air. Yeah. I'm gutted how quickly I'm getting through it, but it's just so good. And I have no doubt we will be reviewing season 3 like we did season 2 last year. Yeah, very shortly. I'll put the description in or link in the description below.
Just on Sex Education, so obviously no spoilers, Dan, for anyone who's not quite up to speed where you are, and obviously I'm on episode 2, just about to go into episode 3. But a non-spoiler, semi-early review, what I will say is I didn't know how they could quite up it, from the lofty heights of season 2. Because, I mean, they pushed it and they pushed the envelope quite significantly in that series. So now, I don't know how, but they have surpassed, they've matched it. And they've gone a little bit further. And that's not easy to do, is it, going into seasons and seasons? But I think they really have delivered so far. So I'm really enjoying it. I mean, there's not going to be a shock, but I think the quality is phenomenal. And they all filmed that, don't forget, Dan. Pretty much early pandemic.
Yeah.
So to pull off what they've done, and for it to look good as, if not better, I think is an absolute shout out to everyone, the cast, production. Not everyone going to hear this, mind. But it is quality. It really does make you appreciate just what goes on behind the scenes, because outside the scenes are all masked up, they're all taking tests with the backdrop of still people clapping on their doorsteps, and for anyone not in the UK, that will make no sense to you whatsoever, because it is as mental as it sounds, but we did it, and we stood on our doorsteps early in the UK pandemic, November, December, etc. of no, it wasn't January, February, March.
It was
spring 2020. We stood on our doorsteps clapping for NHS because, of course, they were the heroes, are the heroes. And, it was lovely to hear this. I don't know how I've gone to the subject. Lovely hearing the sounds of clapping ringing throughout the city. And it is quite amazing. But anyway, nonetheless, ones with that backdrop, people are going out to work, they're acting. People say, acting's it's not really a job. It's easy. Well, I couldn't freaking do it. I don't think you could either. Not you, Dan, but the listener.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Unless you're an actor, which because you can do it. But anyway, you know what I mean? And yeah, they still pulled it off. So it looks very, very good. Interesting segue, just went there. But it looks very, very good, well polished, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So yeah, I really can't wait to review that too.
Oh, maybe we'll make it our next episode. Yeah. But we'll talk about what's coming up at the end of the show. What else? Oh, I mean, when this episode drops, Alex, I will be happily,
Drunk.
joyfully,
Oh,
well, possibly that as well, but just diving into the new Angels and Airwaves album.
oh right, yeah.
But I tell you what really bugs me, Alex. You know, the way the record industry's going now. So the new Angels and Airwaves album, Life Forms, is compiled of 10 tracks. 2 of them got released back in 2019. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So Tom went away and he made the record better. And over the course of 2021, they've released another 5 tracks, which leaves 3 left, Alex.
It does. Goodness.
And basically what is going on, which I mean, I suppose I'm quite old-fashioned. I like the magic of maybe getting a couple of singles and then getting an entire album, and you got 8 new tracks to listen to. But what record labels are doing now is they release it gradually over the course of a year or sort of a few months to build up hype. It's all money.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the only downside. I've got 3 songs left, and one of them gets released at the time of recording tomorrow. So that will leave. Yeah, no, it's 3 tracks. I tell a lie. So yeah, that's right.
You know, John Mayer, who is the top of my admiration list musically speaking. Anyway, he's a brilliant singer-songwriter, guitarist, and I often play him on the radio. That I do hospital radio. Anyway, he released his prime album, latest one. But the one before that, purely digital download, which isn't a surprise perhaps these days, but he likes to do physical copies and vinyls and stuff because he still believes in, you know, tangible media. Anyway, digital download, and every 3 weeks he released 2 songs. And then that made the album. So you'd almost pre-order the album and then you'd get it in installments, which is quite an interesting way of doing it. Now, he hasn't done that for this album. He's released it all in one go, as is, you know, normal tradition. But I thought it was quite an interesting way of doing it, and teasing it out. I didn't like it because obviously, you know, you always want more because you just let the album play, don't you? But it's an interesting way of doing things.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for me, Alex. What about you? What have you been up to?
Work, Dan, as you say. Enjoying what we have left of the British summer. So lots of outdoor activities, castles and trips to the Isle of Wight, etc., etc. Pop culture-wise, probably rinsing the old Netflix down. I've started to watch Kate. Have you seen Kate yet?
No. What's this about?
It's probably similar to any of the other kind of femme fatale assassin type films.
Ooh.
But this one stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Woody Harrelson. And it's all about a hit woman, hit lady, I don't know what the term is, hit person who has grown up a bit like a Black Widow. She's been raised as an assassin and she's on a final hit. Now, I can't spoil too much, but it's her last vengeful assassination. And it's quite good. It's set in, I think it's set in South Korea. So it's got that kind of that Asian, cyberpunky, neon lighty type feel. It's quite good. It's very stylish. I'm really enjoying it. Woody Harrelson's brilliant. Sex Education, as we said. And I've started to watch Squid Game. You had a Squid Game, Dan?
I'm sure one of my friends is watching this. I don't know what it's about.
Long and short of it is, so you know Takeshi's Castle?
Yep.
Is that, but in real life. And if you don't win, if you don't get to the end of that assault course, you die.
Oh.
So it's a bit like, what was that? People are shouting down there at their phones or at their earphones because they know exactly what they're going to get out. What's that Japanese film where the kids are left on the island to kill each other? It's kind of a dark comedy.
Ooh.
Oh, tip of my tongue. People be shouting. They'll be Alex. It's and I can't recall. I'm going to remember. I'm going to look it up as we talk in a bit. Anyway, it's a bit like that. If people know what I'm talking about. And anyway, these people are plucked. I don't know how yet. I haven't gone all the way through. It's episodic. It's not a film, and they are inserted into this game show. I don't think people are aware watching it that the contestants don't just, drop off into the water or the gunk or the goo or off the side of the set. They die, and in bloody, messy ways. It's English subtitles. It's again, I think it's South Korean made, and they're very, very good for horror at the minute.
Battle Royale.
That's the one. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
My Google resident. Battle Royale, which is a phenomenally dark film, but hugely entertaining. If you like your horror stroke thriller. The concept where you get kids together, but like proper kids. We're not talking teenagers. We're talking like ages 7 upwards to like 13, 14. They're dumped on an island, and they're told, if you don't kill each other, we will kill you. And we've got weapons on the island that you've got to find, and people get machetes, and someone finds like a cache with a pencil. All ridiculous stuff. And they're like, well, how am I supposed to kill someone with this? So it's a bit silly, but it's very, very dark. Anyway, it's of that vein. So if you like that, I think you might like this. But I recommend both. So I'm watching that as we go.
Oh, maybe I'll check it out.
But yeah, that's about it, Dan, for me.
Well, let's dive into disappointing finales and endings. Now,
yes.
In my notes,
what's the premise, Dan? What's the premise?
Let's talk about things where we've watched TV series or we've watched a long film, and you get to the end, and that ending or that finale just lets down the entire series or the film. You're
invested, right? So you're sitting through what could be, and I won't say the title of the series or any of them because I'll spoil it early. But there are plenty of seasons or series out there, and you'll watch it and you'll go, brilliant, this is going somewhere. And you're hours and hours and hours and hours in, tens of hours. And the very last hurdle, it all falls flat, and you're incredulous. You have a sense of anger washing over you. A sense of betrayal. How could he do this to me? This isn't the way it's supposed to be. What's happened? Well, that feeling, if you bottle that up, that is exactly what we're going to be uncorking today in today's episode, and choosing a select couple that have really given us that rage, really given us that anger and disappointment. I'm not angry, Dan. I'm disappointed.
Oh, it's that mum talk, isn't it?
It is. It's all of that, all distilled into audio goodness, and that's what we're going to pour down your ears today.
Yeah, I think we've probably both got a couple which we've talked about over the years doing this podcast. So I'm going to kick it off.
Go on, Dan.
We've Lost.
Oh, this is on my list. Of course it is. It has to be on my list.
Yeah. I'll tell you what bugs me about this. Okay. So, maybe I wasn't old enough to appreciate it. I started watching Lost I was 19, I think I worked out earlier. And then it
was a wee nipper.
I was a wee nipper at 19. And then it wrapped up about 5 years later. So I would have been about 23, 24. So for me, the ending chose to be preachy and spiritual over imaginative.
Mm-hmm.
It took an easy way out. Just like the storyline that a character was dreaming the whole time is often spat on by entertainment fans, the idea that they were dead the whole time also has knocked the end of Lost in the eyes of fans.
And I think what probably hurt the most, stung the most, is you could have guessed it at the end of the first episode. Just to give some context here for our listener, to remind probably most people who've seen it, because it was a phenomenon. I mean, was it Fox who were behind this?
Yes. And it was also, was it written or directed by J.J. Abrams?
Yeah, he had a hand in it. It was between 2004 and 2010, across 6 seasons.
Yeah.
That's a total of 121 pointless episodes.
That's quite damning. So in my notes, I've got the flip side, and I sort of try to understand it now that I'm older, much wiser, but there's too many questions that were just left unanswered for me.
Yeah.
But if you're paying close attention to Lost, it was always a discussion about what it means to be alive, human, and the implications of death. The most central discussion in the series is found through Jack and John. Jack is a man of science and John is a man of faith. As the series goes along, Jack's logical mind is challenged by mysticism of the island. The indisputable main character of the series is someone who inherently longs to be in control and fix situations. But then you've got John. So he thrives off the faith of the island, that it's a beautiful place of giving that will answer all of his problems if he believes and submits himself to it. But he too is faced with heartbreak and disappointment. So that's your preachy stuff. I try to appreciate that when I was sort of going to the research. I know people were going, but Lost had a really good ending. You just didn't understand it. Well, I do. I do now. Now I'm older. I've done that bit of research. But there was just so many questions left unanswered. Yeah. So here's a few from me, Alex.
Go on.
There was a lack of answers offered in regards to the island's history and the lore that we spent 6 years trying to unpack. You had things like the polar bears, the smoke monster, and the meaning of Hurley's magic lottery numbers. As the final season unfolded, we did get some answers, but certainly not every box was checked on the Lost mystery bingo card. Blogs and fan sites devoted so much time to decoding the mystery of the island, but the main focus of the finale ends up to be the reveal of the Flash Sideways storyline. Now, this was tracking the characters in purgatory before reuniting in a church and journeying to the afterlife together. To appease fans later, the creators released bonus features on the season 6 DVD, which delved into the plot specifics about the island.
It's all a little bit too late, Dan, I think.
Yeah.
And that's if you're going to decide to pay some money towards a series that ultimately let you down. So it didn't really pay off.
No. A little bit on the Sideways timeline, or the Flash Sideways. So we see our survivors of Oceanic 815 leading different lives in purgatory throughout the season before they each remember their past and actual lives on the island. There are plot developments such as Jack, almost called him Cack. Well, I mean, that's kind of what it is, Alex.
Yep.
Treating John Locke's disability, Jin and Sun expecting a child of their own, and Jack having his own son. Now, the flashbacks were intertwined with some of the cast being back on the island and accomplishing their final mission to destroy it, which, again, doesn't really make a lot of sense. The Flash Sideways felt like a story filler. If you think about it, at the start of season 6, writers could have explained all the mysteries about the island in a 5 to 10 minute explanation.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we got it stretched out over 18 episodes. I think what it came down to was that there wasn't enough story to tell, and what was left, they just sort of did the whole Flash Sideways thing.
Which is really confusing going from the end of season 5, I remember, into season 6, and it's odd. So odd, and you can kind of see where they were going as they started to kind of tease that the reality was unraveling and something wasn't quite correct, and they all had to venture and pull back, these people into going back to the island. But it kind of felt like it finished, and then they came back for an encore, which no one wanted. It's like going, I don't know if you've had it, Dan, but you've been to, I don't know, say a live event where someone's playing for you, like a band, and you think, they're rubbish live. For instance, Bowling for Soup. Do you remember those guys? Of course you do.
I saw them live. They were like one of my first gigs back in the day.
Nah, they're terrible.
Oh, they are now, right?
No, yeah. I watched them, I don't know, when I was 22 in uni. And I was bored. I could still listen to the music, but I decided to go and sit at the bar instead. They're really, really bad. Anyway, it's like that. And they sure enough gave an encore, but I'd walked out at the end and then just went to the pub. It's like that.
You do.
It's like missing the encore, and it's like they've offered the encore, but you don't want to watch it because it wasn't that good in the first place. It's exactly what I mean, it's a tenuous link, another one, but it's exactly what Lost was for me. They played us too much. It wasn't a particularly good performance at the end, and I wasn't really game for season 6 when they came back on stage to play us one last, hurrah.
Mm.
And it's for the reasons that you say, like secret doomsday hatches in the ground kind of makes sense as it gets through seasons 2 and 3, but additional islands, unexploded atomic bombs, and it all got a bit too odd, and none of it really got tied off satisfactorily. So you're all just wondering, well, what is this about? Because you're running out of time. You're never going to address it. So why drop it in there?
Mm.
And it's literally because they're trying to dangle that carrot, but they kind of ran out of road, and we ended up walking off a cliff in season 6. And it was a very poor payoff. And I don't think anyone was satisfied at the end of that one.
No. I mean, do you remember, I suppose the first couple of seasons in, there was a theory that, these guys were already dead and they were in purgatory.
Yeah.
The disappointing thing, they weren't dead on the island, and the island was not purgatory. This mysterious tropical place was all real.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know. I'm still speakless. 11 years on, Dan. I'm speechless.
I think it's one of those things that when you mention to people, it leaves a sour taste in their mouth. And unfortunately, at Universal, I've yet to come across someone who's gone, you know what, there's nothing wrong with it. Perfect. Expertly written. There's nothing wrong with it, because I don't think that person exists, Dan.
They do. They do exist. I remember challenging someone when I used to work at, when it all ended in my previous employer. And he was like, "You're missing the point." Well, I probably haven't now, sort of reviewing it 11 years on. I've sort of put that piece at the beginning, though. There is a deeper meaning, but fuck it. It's shit.
It is really, really bad. I would encourage anyone who's got a different view to contact us. But ultimately, I don't think there's very much you can say to change our minds.
We've both been challenged over some of these finales. We've talked about in previous episodes, and it happens. But we're here to disappoint you.
Indeed. As always, that's why you're still here, guys. 120 episodes of absolute cack. To use your term, Dan. It's just it's disappointing. And the premise was so good. It could have gone anywhere, but they decided to cop out and gave us a last season which no one wanted.
Yeah. Garbage.
Getting to see.
So, what's your first choice?
Game of Thrones.
Oh, this is in my notes. This was next for me.
2011 to 2019, over 73 episodes. So, still a significant amount of time. And I'm not saying it was all rubbish. So before you, the listener, are bringing up your email account, starting to type a strongly worded email to onthetopicpodcast@gmail.com, wait a second. Hear me out just a second.
Hear us out, because I've got loads.
Okay. Because it is quite good. I'm not going back on what I'm going to say in a second, but the premise is still quite good. We're talking about endings here, so it's not the whole thing that's rubbish.
We're talking about the last episode, aren't we?
Well, the whole season, the last season was just terrible. But it's actually pretty good. So the premise, if you don't know what it is, look, I appreciate I was late to the hype train, so I think I got on board in season 3. Because I was sick of people saying, have you seen Game of Thrones? It's brilliant, it's brilliant, brilliant. And I think we talked about it before, Dan. We tend to go the opposite way. We're not interested in getting on the hype train, and we want to kind of discover it for ourselves. But I gave in. And sure enough, the first couple of seasons are tits and fanning. And, that's brilliant. But after a while, it tends to settle in, and then it's not gratuitous, body parts. Actually, so I think it ends up kind of fitting into the world that they craft. But the first couple of seasons are tits and fanning. Anyway, it is set on the fictional continents of Westeros on Essos. So Game of Thrones is a large cast, and there's several story arcs throughout all the seasons, and they all end up crossing paths and clashing and coming to blows literally as the storylines develop. Of course, 73 episodes, things are going to happen. Now, it's all about kind of a medieval setting with noble families and fighting for different thrones and the north and the south, etc. It then looks at legacy and what's happened before and rightful heirs and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, there's lots of backstabbing. Lots of people being overthrown and lots of murders. And then there's a weird bit, which is about some cats in the background. I'm not sure if you heard that on the mic, Dan. Cats are going at it. Yeah, having a fight. Anyway, there's the Night's Watch. So men who have been cast away, they're exiles, usually of the north, and they watch over this massive, gigantic ice wall that divides them from the what they call the wildlings, aren't they? And
the White Walkers.
And the White Walkers, these mysterious, deathly, only spoken but not seen adversaries. Now, the problem for me, Dan, and we're not going to go into the whole season, so if you haven't seen it, and none of that makes sense, I would recommend it. But the problem for me, Dan, is that the pacing of all of the prior 5 seasons were very well paced.
Mm.
And the final 3 ended up kind of being tacked onto and worked up. But in the final season, though, was a very odd mix. So it was building all this pace, all this suspense, all the storylines were starting to come together into some big crescendo. Brilliant. Fantastic writing, fantastic finales, a lot of shock, a lot of blood, a lot of, I didn't think they could do that. Oh my God, you can't kill them type moments. Everyone was up for grabs, weren't they? But if you watch the season, you would literally not know who would survive. And that's a brilliant way of writing, because you keep the audience guessing. You don't know who is ultimately your favourite character might not see the end of that episode. And then the next episode, they're forgotten. It can be quite as brutal as that. And, as we get into the beginning of season 6, there's plenty of set pieces. I think there was the siege of the North, and you've got something of the size of the Battle of the Bastards.
Oh, that was a great scene.
Brilliant scene from the prior season. This is movie quality stuff. They took weeks to film it. They did something similar. There's lots of falling dead bodies and zombies and the rest of it, which did look very, very good. But my beef is, Dan, the disappointing ending. Alex gets to the chase. Well, the disappointing ending is Daenerys losing her mind.
Just like that.
And it didn't make any sense, because she's built up from the very first episode, pretty much. I think she's in episode 2 or 3. But from the first season, at least, she was there. Her whole purpose and being was to regain what was hers, rightful ruler of Westeros, to cut the chains and to free the people who have been enslaved by all these various different nations, and to be this benevolent ruler. And at the final hurdle, she goes, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to burn this place to the ground. And she takes a dragon and she burns every bugger that she can see. And these are innocent people. It was just so odd, Dan, with everything that she'd done beforehand, everything that she'd been tirelessly arguing with, with their closest confidants. Oh, I won't do this, and this is for the rights of the people, and I won't do that. And even if it's my best interest, not for and she goes, you know what, fuck it, I'll burn them. And she laid waste to King's Landing, which really didn't make any sense whatsoever. And at the very end, and look, apologies stop here. If you are going to watch it, I think I'll probably give too much away, but just at the very end, Bran is handed the crown. And you're like, well, he's done nothing. He's literally, and no offense to the guy, he had a horrific accident, being pushed off in episode 1 out of the tower and being paralyzed. But he spent the whole of the seasons laid out on his back, essentially doing nothing because it's catatonic. So for him to then at the very end be crowned king of the North, he's fucking done nothing. Look at Sansa, his sister, who, is being the most political and backstabbing and intelligent of all the characters, arguably, as the seasons progress. At a stretch, the bastard Jon Snow, who everyone's rooting for, and he goes toe-to-toe with one of the most, evil or threats to Westeros single-handedly, and then has a control over the dragons. That's an easy right, but he should have really had it. But instead, no, he's then found off wandering into the north, looking after the wildlings, and his little sister, who actually kills the what is he? The Ice King, I forgot what he's called now. The evil bastard with the ice crown. She kills him. But no, she sets sail off into distance as a mercenary. And you're sat there going, what the fuck have I just watched? Because this resembles nothing of what I've seen over, the course of what 2011 to 2019, 8 years. And they fucking left us waiting 18 months between seasons. So they were doing back-to-back filmings, weren't they? If you remember. And then they went, you know what? Nah, we're going to wait 18 months. And everyone's like, you what? The longest wait is 8 months or 9 months. 18. They left us waiting down nearly 2 years. And then they gave us that. And you're like, why? And they rushed it. And the reason, I think the reason being, Dan, there's many people who have different opinions. But the reason being, I think, is because George R.R. Martin hadn't finished the books.
No.
Still hasn't, I don't think.
No, we're still waiting for 2 books.
Yeah, and he gave his blessing apparently, and there was not, there's some kind of expose in the coming years where he says he didn't do it. He backtracks, but he gave apparently his blessing for the screenwriters to forge their own ending. So this isn't canon, so to speak. This is going to be its own kind of way that which they finish, and perhaps that's the reason, because he didn't have the magic of George R.R. Martin. But he fucking backed it, so he's got blood in his hand as much as anyone else. Cheated. Set of films, brilliant. Money, fantastic. Worth the wait, definitely not. And I felt really disappointed, Dan. I think we were messaging at the time. And I was like, what, why? Like, I think everyone just felt there wasn't. I don't think there was many storylines out of that, and there's loads of subplots, weren't there?
Yeah.
Where you went, you know what? That's fine. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I've got comfort that person should have croaked it, or that person should have got stabbed in the back, or that person should have had a good ending. No one really had the satisfactory ending to that. I think everyone was let down.
Yeah. I need to have a little bit of a rant as well.
Crack on, mate. Swear jars open.
So much death preceded this episode that the very last episode was pretty much action-free. Sort of beyond Jon confronting Daenerys and just pretty much putting a sword through her. Fair play. And I don't know why he gets punished for that. It's like, fuck off, mate. Go up north. Go back to where you came from, you bastard.
Indeed.
It's ridiculous. And we are literally and figuratively dragged through a cleanup of all this mess. You've got Tyrion searching through the rubble of King's Landing, where he finds the bodies of his brother and sister, Jaime and Cersei, united in death, as they were in life, which was a bit ghastly.
Yeah.
And you know what? I feel sorry for Peter Dinklage. He does so hard. He tries so hard to sell that moment, but it's just so impossible to know. It's impossible to know how to feel about 2 of the show's most notorious characters being killed in that way.
And just on Peter Dinklage, he was one of my favourite actors and had a brilliant script for all of the other seasons. Very funny, very witty, outrageous, rude, obnoxious, charismatic, everything all in between. Last season, didn't even know he was there.
No.
He was flat, got a bum deal. I think he was very poorly executed in the end, and not literally, but written. He was let down. He was the star of the show, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He didn't really get a good enough ending.
So I've got a pro and I've got a con, and then I'm going to carry on moaning. It devotes itself entirely to sweeping up the ragged plot ends of the show, with no attention paid to the short of epic battles or powerful drama, which were a key part of its identity. But the con, what stands out with the gift of hindsight, is how emotionless of an episode it was to end it all.
Yeah.
Emotionless. There was nothing there that sort of drew me, and I went, by the end of it, I was bored. I was actually bored.
This should be a defining moment where there are tears of joy down people's faces and signs of relief and satisfaction, and none of that.
Yeah. I mean, like, when you sort of think about it, I mean, I'll sort of back you up. It was inescapable TV. It was creative. It was imaginative.
It's funny.
yeah, it was just fantastical. But the series finale was just felt disconnected from just basic human emotion, and it was hard to really sort of figure out what anyone was feeling. We went through all those years of, well, you said it yourself, 73 episodes, and we get that garbage, rubbish, disappointed.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to say, Dan. I'm just, I'm aghast with disappointment. Just, yeah, and George R.R. Martin will have the final laugh, right? He banked in, all those people, much like me, who could only get the last season on Sky Atlantic or whatever it was, or whatever they were peddling at the time. You would get the subscription and you would binge it to try and not pay for next month's worth of subscription. But I paid that £10. By God, did I get that £10? But I wouldn't have done, had I known that last season, I would have waited. And he would have taken a hefty slice of that, and he'd be laughing. And he's now got the time to be able to actually finish it for what it was and what it should be. So he's the winner, Dan. We're not. We're all losers. Everyone's a loser. But George R.R. Martin, he's the real winner out of this.
Yeah. One of our listeners, Christopher, he said, I feel I'll get the right ending when I read the books, if they ever come out.
Yeah.
So my next one, Alex, don't know if you're a fan, Dexter.
Watched first season. Odd, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Watched halfway through season 2. Something else came out. It was a little bit slow. I liked where it was going, but I didn't think it was going to be enough, and I stopped there.
Carry on.
Okay.
Because season 4 is fantastic. It's got John Lithgow as the main protagonist.
Oh, yeah.
And then season 6 is also very good. It's got Tom Hanks' son as the protagonist.
Tom Hanks Jr.?
Yeah, I can't remember Tom Hanks' son's name, but 2 very good series there.
Okay.
But obviously my gripe is with the final season and, of course, the final episode. So Dexter was one of the most popular and beloved dramas of the 2000s until its final season, which ended with an extremely controversial finale. So if you're unfamiliar with Dexter, he worked in forensics for the police, but he's also a serial killer. But obviously he wasn't killing like just normal people. He was going out and killing the bad guy, which is kind of unique.
Yeah, he'd hear on the grapevine that something rather's happened or someone's being investigated, and find out that they were in fact bad people and doing essentially what the audience wanted to happen, the justice. But he was also satisfying a very gruesome need, which was to kill people, but not in a standard fashion. It was often slow, and it was quite orchestrated and quite fitting, wasn't it, in terms of whatever that person, a bit like Seven, the film with Brad Pitt and co. It was usually in the fashion of which the person was, guilty for.
Yeah, and he'd always end up sort of chopping up the bodies, wrapping them up in plastic, taking them out into the bay of Miami in his boat, and then just dumping them into the cold briny.
Plop.
In you go. But yeah, the finale. In the finale, his sister Deb suffers a stroke. I should probably put a spoiler alert in, but
bloody hell, Dan, you're shooting from the hip now, are you? Jesus.
Sorry. So anyway, she suffers a stroke.
Yes.
Put the spoiler alert in here, Alex.
Okay. I mean, it's a bit late because she just told us that she's poorly. But okay, but fine, yeah, okay.
So after successful surgery from a gunshot wound, which leaves her brain dead.
Oh, that's not nice.
It's dark. It's dark. I still remember vaguely watching this back in, I think it was 2013. This finished. I just thought, this is dog shit. You've just killed off like one of the main characters in the most ridiculous ways. And of course, Miami is just about to be hit by a hurricane. And of course, the hospital is just chaotic. They're trying to evacuate. They're trying to get people out. Dexter goes into Deb's room, unplugs her life support, and carries her off.
Oh,
He then takes her out into his boat, into the sea, in the middle of a hurricane, where he just drops her body in the water. Then what does he do, Alex? Fakes his death.
oh,
He goes off to Oregon to become a lumberjack, also abandoning his son, Harrison. This ending does not make much sense given Dexter's
no.
well-known pragmatic and logical thought process.
That's quite a swerve, isn't it?
It just seems a bit messy for me. You know,
Yeah.
let's say he's very pragmatic, he's very logical, and you know, the way he sort of goes out to get these bad people, trying to get the better of them and, you know, ultimately killing them.
Yeah, very calculated,
Yeah.
very level-headed. Not
Yeah.
everything goes to plan, at least through the season and a half that I saw it, but he'd always take stock and then come up with a very intelligent and very well thought out way of still getting what he wants by not incriminating himself. That's always the cat and mouse kind of dichotomy between his jobs and his responsibilities as a crime scene detective or crime scene person and a murderer.
Yeah.
So for him to, as you say, do something which is quite impulsive and very well at odds with the character just seems quite... I wasn't expecting to say that, to be honest.
No. So it's a little bit messy, but apparently the original showrunner for series 1 to 4, Clyde Phillips, had actually planned for the series to end with Dexter's death. After the airing of the finale, producer John Goldwyn revealed that Showtime would not let the writers kill Dexter at the end of season 8. I think it was season 7. I can't actually remember now. Anyway, Showtime's reasoning was that they were considering the show's core fan base, who have a relationship with Dexter and would be furious about his death. I mean, at the time of writing, they have actually reviewed, and they've gone ahead with another series.
They have, yeah. It's going to be exclusive run, I've read. They've finished filming or they're in production, but
It's due
yeah,
out
they're going to
soon, isn't it?
Yeah, they're going to do a very limited run, which perhaps it's undoing some of the damage they've done, as you say, leaving the last season. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we always sort of talk about this. It's the lack of consistent writers' room, which is probably a legitimate reason for the show's disappointing ending. The finale may go down as one of the most hated endings to a show of all time. Well, we've already agreed that there's probably worse out there.
Indeed.
But that doesn't mean the series hasn't produced several acclaimed seasons that will help Dexter remain well worth watching. I mean, don't give up if you've started watching Dexter. I mean, if you're still listening, you know, you've had the spoiler alert and you already kind of know what's going to happen. Sit tight. It's worth it. Just don't bother with the final series.
There you go.
Yeah, I just feel like they did the character dirty. But
And don't you think that they should have really slapped on their own spoiler warning before you start? You know, when you click on Netflix, it's, what do you want to watch today? We recommend you should watch this, but don't watch the last season.
Yeah.
Don't you think they should do that? Should we pitch it to Netflix? The shows wouldn't thank us. But don't you think, though, people would probably appreciate not being strung along? Because there's still going to be people who go, oh, what's this Lost about? Or what's this Game of Thrones about? This sounds good. Let me watch it. And there's going to be people who are just falling into these traps forever. Slap on the spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Tell them, guys, this is going to be great. You're going to love season 3. Lap it up. But don't touch season 7 because it's absolutely terrible.
No.
You know
Netflix, Amazon Prime, who else is that? Disney Plus.
Talk to us.
Talk to us. If you want our heads to pop up, we'll point down and go, this is really fucking good. Just don't fucking watch the last episode. It's shit.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll keep it clean for Disney. It'll be like proper Mickey Mouse stuff.
Oh, 100%. We can do that.
Yeah.
Breakfast Club, whatever it is. But yeah, surely that's a way to make sure that the future, you know, audience don't fall foul as we have.
Indeed. Oh boy, I can feel myself becoming more and more disappointed as we go through in this episode. So what's your next one, Alex?
Harry Potter.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof, big oof.
Yeah. slap to the face. You weren't expecting it. Let me explain. So from 2001 to 2011, 7 films. Talked about it before. We've done the bumper 3-hour, give or take, review with our special guest Vicky. Again, I'll put a link in the description below. Very good episode. I really enjoyed it. We actually did that in the studio, didn't we, for the radio? Wonderful audio. Really enjoyed it. It's a long one, so perhaps you break up when you're doing your trips to work or doing the weekly shop or going for a walk. But it's a really good one to listen to. So if you're into Harry Potter, we talk everything from favourite bits to bits we let down and the rest of it. Look, I again, before you're frantically reaching for the phone and giving me some kind of hate comment on social media, just wait a second. Said it afterwards. What I will say is I am a fan of Harry Potter and I love it. And it's got a special place in my heart, even if J.K. Rowling is an absolute tosspot. Her vision is phenomenal. We can't deny that. But the ending, and this is a film now, the book is a different take and different execution. So I've got to be very clear when I say this. The book, I think it still was a bit of a letdown. I think it didn't really pay off, but there was some kind of satisfaction because of the way which you read a book, right? You're cozied up, you're in a calm state, you're engrossed and you're focused. A film, there's lots going on. Music, sound, explosions, vision, and the rest of it. And I just felt as though at the end of The Deathly Hallows Part 2 back in 2011, they kind of fucked it. And what being about it is the Battle of Hogwarts, fine. Wasn't particularly great, but fine. A lot happened. And I think in the book, it was very well paced. And I think it spread out the various different scenes very, very well. It was chaos. It was carnage. People were losing their ears and dying and doing whatever. But it kind of felt correct for a book. In the film, not so much. It was very, very messy. But fine. Just about deal with that. But almost like the post-credits scene, Dan, the ending in the station, where we then see the next generation of children being sent off to Hogwarts, on the Hogwarts Express, platform 9 3/4. And whilst in the book, I mean, the book was very, very odd. And I remember people saying, have you read the end of the book? And I was like, no, I'm actually just started, actually. I wasn't on the hype train and I think I was too young when the books first came out, Dan. So,
yeah,
no, too old when the books came out, sorry. So I missed reading it because the first book, Philosopher's Stone, whatever you want to call it here in the UK, is Philosopher's Stone, is quite childish. It's very simple, bit large text. It's not a long book. It's still wonderfully written, right? I'm not going to take anything away from that, but it was aimed at a different audience. And because of that, I think I was too old when it came out, so I missed it. And as a young teenager, you're not going to go, well, I'm going to go read a children's book. At least not as a young teenage boy of the 2000s. We didn't do that, did we?
No.
But then as the films came on, then I decided that I'm really interested. I could see what's going. And then I think again at university with lots of time and not so much money, but, not a great financial head on, I spent lots of money and one of those was on books. And I read them all back to back and eventually I caught up. But people saying, have you read it? I said, no, I haven't. I said, not too sure about the ending, which is not what you really need because you're only on book fucking 2, a good 1,000 pages behind them, whatever it is. But anyway, I persevered. And the book, I think it was about 5 pages or so. Yeah, I might be wrong. It's been a while, but it wasn't many pages dedicated to it. It was just a very nice little snippet, a bookend, a bittersweet ending to everything that you put in all those years that you've read the books.
Yeah.
Being a film, no one asked for it. And it didn't really add any value to the visual interpretation of that storyline. Because they digitally aged the cast.
Yeah,
so you've got...
We're not talking Marvel, are we?
No. This was
they do a great job.
Yeah, I mean, look at X-Men 3, was it? The Last Stand 3?
Yes.
That's 2.
Yeah.
And you've got Patrick Stewart, who was de-aged. And you're like, brilliant. Even, I think it's just about, well, you tell me, Dan, have you seen it recently? I haven't seen it too recently.
No.
But I think it still holds up today. They spent a lot of money, putting in Stan Fleming Jansen who's still a MILF these days. I've got a special place in her heart for me. She shout out from Jansen, give me a call. She was DA as well, and they looked fantastic. They looked good. You knew they looked a bit funny, but it's still well invested. This looked terrible. Daniel Radcliffe has got wrinkles all the wrong places. You've got Emma Watson, who, she's got the stature still of a young girl. She's a slim lady, and it did translate to an older person. Rupert Grint again, he just looks very, very odd. No offense, Rupert, but you do look odd as an old person. And it just looked, you could tell they basically had makeup on. It didn't look good at all. Unless my argument is on the book, fine, because you can just have a couple of pages and say, well, this is your kind of your thank you, and this is the torch bearer passing, etc., etc. But in a film, unless they're actually going anywhere with it next, this feels like it was a bolt-on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's out of place, isn't it?
Yeah, we knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. We knew they all had their paycheck. We all know they were going to go off and do their solo projects. We didn't know at the time they were going to have something terrible, which was Fantastic Beasts. That we just thought that was the end. And to have that just felt like, well, again, the encore. I'm back in the Guildhall in Portsmouth back in 2005 watching Bowling for Soup, and I'm like, I don't even fucking want to be here. Well, I'm even sitting through this encore. I just want to go to the pub. I'm not even joking, Dan. And I just felt like it was almost like a rushed afterthought. Whereas the book, as I say, was bittersweet and perhaps was a nice kind of a thank you to the fans. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the only time I'm going to have beef. I'm probably going to say too much here, but not the only time I have beef with J.K. Rowling. But she fucked it on this. I think she did pretty well up until that pretty final hurdle at the end, and it wasn't very well executed. And we just didn't need that post-credit scene. Get in the sea.
Get in the sea. Oh boy, I'm heading into my last two now, Alex.
Go on, tell me.
Next one, Line of Duty Series 6.
Oh, this is apt and timely. Now, we probably do have to put another spoiler alert in here, right? Because if people have fast-forwarded from the previous spoiler alert, they may pick this up here and go, oh, I'm fine. Dan won't talk about recent BBC hit TV series, Line of Duty. I'm safe. So should we put it in here now just to cover our backs?
Yep. Just put it in.
Here we go.
So if you're unfamiliar with Line of Duty, it follows AC-12, who's anti-corruption. So they go out basically taking down bent coppers, dodgy policemen and all that good stuff. And, series 1 to 5 are just fantastic. It's wonderfully written. So was season 6 up until the very last episode. So throughout, you're given this guy this code name H. So viewers,
not the guy from Steps, by the way.
No, not him. Viewers are heavily criticised in the final episode for its boring reveal of this H fella. And it left fans feeling majorly underwhelmed. Me included. I feel sorry for my other half, Claire, who, she watched it from the very start, which I think it began airing in 2010, and then you get like a series every year. And of course, we never got season 6 until this year because of COVID, so there was a gap. So she had to wait a couple of years, but I got the joy of binge watching this in pretty much one go, really, and then waiting for Series 6 to come out. So H is a code name referring to a group of senior-ranking corrupt police officers within the Central Police. So sounds exciting, doesn't it?
It does.
The revelation that H was not just one individual, but actually a group of officers. Sure enough, after picking up on the misspelling of a word definitely, yes, definitely. So DEFINITELY. Oh, he can spell. This corrupt copper has been shown to write it as with an A in it. So DEFINATELY in past episodes. So this has apparently been dotted out throughout 5-6 seasons.
Right.
AC12 did a search into historic documents to discover the fourth member of H. And it was, in fact, the blundering detective superintendent Ian Buckles, who's played by
that
Nigel
old school
Boyle.
job.
Yes, Ian Buckles, a bumbling, snarky DSI who couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery, Alex. Buckles had been a prime suspect at the beginning of the series, especially due to clues showing him swinging a golf club in his office. Now, this was a reference to crooked former character D.I. Matthew Cotton, who was also known as the Caddy. The series that he snuffs at, Alex, is phenomenal. I think it's like series 3. So fans just thought, bit of a red herring. There's probably something bigger behind all this at play. So having been summoned to the famous AC12 office for interrogation following new evidence that definitely came at just the right time, Buckle spent most of the episode saying no comment. It literally was a grilling, and that's all he said. It was boring. It was horrific. But when he did talk, Buckles actually painted a picture of a man who was in the right places at the right time rather than someone who had been decidedly pulling the strings for all these years. Buckles claimed he simply acted as a communicator, feeding information back and forth and taking advantage of situations that he could benefit from. As Ted Hastings pointed out, he had been leading a double life, hiding the financial perks of his criminal activity and presenting as a distinctly average, even incompetent officer. So yeah, there was no big reveal. It was a bumbling fucking idiot that turned out to be this massive, crime lord. He's, fantastic writing throughout all these episodes. And like I say, even season 6, the first few episodes were phenomenal. Like, the action was fantastic. You're on the edge of your seat. There's even an ending to one episode where it's like a showdown. 2 guns, goes black, and you hear 2 gunshots. And at the end, wow, I won't give too much space. So yeah, fantastic writing. And then you round off with this bullshit.
And you kind of expect, something that comes to mind when you're talking is perhaps something like the latest Daniel Craig James Bond iteration, Inspector. So this underworld cabal of hooded figures meeting around the table and, as you say, are the evil masterminds of an underworld. And for it to be totally misdirected to be a bumbling idiot who's there all along just feels like a grave injustice there.
Indeed. So I've got one left after this, but what have you got next, Alex?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some more shade at JK Rowling. We talked about it before, and I won't disappoint you. And I'll give a couple of honourable mentions before I hand over to you. We're going to finish on a disappointing high, which is Juxtaposition. Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald back in 2018.
Oh, fuck it. This nearly made my notes. I'm not going to lie. This nearly made it. So we've got some beef here, Alex.
We've got some significant beef. So much so we're going to be eating it for a long, long time. We never really asked. We asked for the Wizarding World, don't get me wrong, but we never asked for this series. And in fact, they're still making a freaking third one. That I'd be surprised if anyone watches it. Notwithstanding, because Johnny Depp is no longer in it and now got to bring in I've forgotten the chap's name, the guy in
he was in Casino Royale.
He was with the weeping eye. Anyway.
Can't take an asthma pump properly either.
No. But anyway, they've had to change and these things happen. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, it's just a fact. But we didn't need the storyline. Now the storyline of the first film was a little bit odd. Again, a meek, but ends up being quite an influential character in the Wizarding World back in, was it the 30s, I think, 20s or 30s?
Yeah.
And then it's set. odd, but fine. I was interested. Went to the cinema with my wife. We were watching this back in 2018, and we thought, okay, this could be good. They've expanded the world, and it's now talked about Dumbledore with Jude Law, who actually, I think it kind of worked. And I was like, okay, I could be into this. This could be something quite interesting. I like this. And you've got flying carriages that are bursting out. I think it was Big Ben or something or other, and they did not disappoint. But as the film progressed, you're thinking, where's this going? I think I'm getting a bit bored. And by the end, you're just left absolutely aghast. You're thinking, well, why have you just done this? And the whole film is actually a crime itself by Warners and J.K. Rowling, who clearly hasn't got enough money and wants to rake in more. And there's a ton of reveals which just really didn't make sense, Dan. The main innocent but also deadly individual character of the first film, Credence, he doesn't end up exploding, imploding, or otherwise. In the first film, he's revealed at the very end as alive. He's looking out across some snowy mountains. And apparently, the big reveal by Grindelwald, as he puts his hand on his shoulder and says, don't worry, mate, I'll look after you, is that apparently he is a family member to Albus Dumbledore. So they've made up a whole new part of the family tree that hasn't been referenced anywhere else at all, just to fit this fucking film and a character that should have been fucking dead. It didn't really make any sense. So this is now Aurelius. It's not Credence, as it was called before, it's Aurelius. Now, it could still, at the time of recording, because we haven't seen the third film, and nor don't have any intention of spending any money on it, but it could be a red herring, and actually is Grindelwald looking to wield the power of this wizard who has the Obscurus, the power inside him, the rage and the anger that he can't control. I still think it's a very odd twist at the very end of the film, which it's got nothing to do with Fantastic Beasts, Dan.
No.
It's more of a kind of extension to kind of the ending of the Harry Potter series, where the Ministry of Magic has no power and the Death Eaters are taking control, and it's very dark times in London and the world, and Muggles don't know anything different, and they're all dying, etc., and it's all miserable. That was all there was. There was very rarely anything to do with the hijinks of the first film of all the naughty beasts and animals and monsters that they're being captured or cajoled into bottomless hats and the rest of it.
Because that was the magic of the first film, wasn't it?
100%.
That's what made it so good. But oh god,
something new,
awful,
and something interesting, and it directly related to as you say, the magic of the world. This was depressing. This was dark. We didn't need it. We already had the two endings to Deathly Hallows. We didn't need that. And then to throw at the very end of that film that Credence is now related to Albus Dumbledore, when no one's ever heard that before and it's not seemingly anywhere referenced anywhere else, just feels very, very odd, and definitely at odds with the rest of the film. I remember sat there, I looked at my wife and we just looked at each other and went, what the fuck have we just watched? Like, I was bored, and I only sat at the end because I wanted to see what the cliffhanger was. It's not really a cliffhanger. They just tried to put a character that was half decent in the first film back into the third without clumsily doing it, and really with no kind of finesse.
Yeah. And
I just feel as though Warner's have just opened a checkbook and gone, fuck it, we'll write ourselves a third film. And I just don't have zero interest in seeing where it's going to go, because I don't have any faith that they're going to execute a half-decent storyline.
No. They also did it dirty with Queenie as well.
100%.
Just out of the blue, just like that. Shocking.
Yeah, I didn't get it, Dan. I still don't get it. It doesn't really have any of the hallmarks of the Wizarding World, and just feels like it's just a lot of shoehorned. Oh, that looks good. Let's put that in there. Oh, this might be interesting to see. Although it makes no fucking sense. Let's build that in there too, because they'll lap it up because they love the franchise. Yeah, we do, and we have. We feel mugs for it. I know I do. I feel cheated. So I can't say I'm really looking forward to the next one, and I don't think I'm going to go and watch the cinema.
Oh no, it's not worth the investment, I don't think.
I'll wait till Netflix, you know.
Yeah, I think you warned me, so don't bother watching it. I didn't listen. Me and
Didn't
my
listen
other
to
half put it on the TV. Shit, getting to see.
At least it's just on TV. You did pay a ticket. That's the main difference. So, actually, all the Fantastic Beasts, really, but the last one definitely was a crime of humanity, not a Grindelwald of humanity. Back in 2018, you've been warned, guys. You've been warned.
Unpopular opinion. I still love the first one.
It's all right. It has some magic. Now, just a couple of dishonourable mentions before we get to see what I did there. Before we get to your final one, Dan. Very, very quickly, Tom Cruise's War of the Worlds back in 2005.
Yep.
Again, not very good. Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, Anne Robertson, Justin Chatwin. I do actually quite like this film.
Yeah, same. I saw it in the cinema with my dad and a friend.
It's a Tom Cruise fest, but if you accept it for what it is, you do get a good sense of dread and helplessness. So it's perfect in tone. But what I couldn't understand is how his son, who ran off into battle with no fucking weapons or training halfway through the film, is at the doorstep at the end. He's survived. He sought out his estranged wife and his family. How did he make it then? And even Tom looks surprised at the very end.
Yeah.
He's probably looked at the script and gone, guys, can I pull this off? I'm Tom Cruise. Fuck it, I'm going to pull this off. He tries his best, but no one knows how he's done it. And I think that was really, really odd. I understood. I got it. I think it was an interesting take. And as I say, if you take it for what it is, I do like the film. But it's very, very odd how the son is still alive at the end. So I don't know why I did that. Think it was silly. Remember Me, back in 2010. You seen that film?
It rings a bell.
Robert Pattinson, Emily de Ravin, Pierce Brosnan, Chris Cooper. It's a moody Pattinson film who's got daddy issues. And there's also a love story in there. It is a watch. That is until the very end, Dan. I won't spoil it. He does teenage brooding very, very well. And there's lots of kind of like instances where you can understand, you can empathize with the father, but also take the son's side. And no one's a winner out of that storyline. And at the very end, they reconcile. I'm not spoiling it because you're probably never going to watch it. And anyway, you can't have a go at me. He's 12 years old. But Patterson visits his busy father at the work office. You can kind of get what I'm going at. Father's always been too busy, very successful, works in the city, never has time for his son. You can see where the problem lies.
Yeah.
But they reconcile, and it's a great way forwards. A really great ending. Now, Patterson then looks out the window, and as we as the audience are facing him from the outside, so if you just suspend belief and engage the imagination, we're 200 floors up in the skyscraper. We're looking out from the sky back into the office. Rob Pattinson stood there, and we see the reflection on the window of a passenger plane coming towards him. And it cuts to the end. Transpires he's in the World Trade Center.
Oh.
Transpires that it's 2001. And he presumably perishes with his father and everyone else in that building. And that's quite a dark ending. Yeah. And it comes literally, as I've described it, it comes fucking their field. And they're like, well, why? Why did you do that? That makes no sense. There's no insinuation. And viewers who actually felt left like the rug had been pulled out under their feet. And some people felt actually it was quite an offensive and cheap shot because actually it was still quite raw back in 2010. Still quite raw now. Fuck it. I remember it now. And I'm not even American, and I still think it's horrific and terrible. And I remember what I was doing that day. It's a day that changed the world. So for 2010, still very quite raw and the rest of it, people felt like it was why did you do that? That had no bearing on the film. Yeah, it was a shock tactic, but felt quite cheap and no one really got it. And it took a lot of flack because of it, and quite rightly so, because I think there's no reason why I did that. But it's literally at the closing, last 10 seconds. Artistically brilliant, executed poorly, I think in quite poor taste. So a lot of people would have felt that disappointing ending. Because they're expecting a love film, Dan, right?
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson, everyone broods over him, or did. Will, don't know if he's going to be in the Batman, but he's a very good actor, and he plays a particular part very, very well. So for people then to come out from their date nights, seeing the beginnings of what's going to be a horrific and quite fresh, harrowing story that continues past when the screen goes black is, I think, left people quite a bit shocked. So yeah, Remember Me. I think it's quite a good film, if I recall, but the ending's just piss poor. And the last one, a little bit close to our patch of interest down, is Man of Steel, 2013.
Ooh, bit of Henry Cavs.
Henry Cavs, Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, amongst others. I think it's a solid effort of a reboot, I think. But what I can't understand, Dan, is how, and it hasn't really been interesting in subsequent films really entirely, the sheer destruction of Metropolis. So we effectively see the whole city that are laid to ruin during the final third of the film, right? There's a massive citywide, films worldwide kind of battle between Superman and General Zod. And there's hardly any skyscraper left standing. It's literally a city full of rubble, but at the very end, they're showing that it's being rebuilt. Don't know how the fuck they've done that. And they don't really explain how it's all fixed, and they can just move on at the end of the film. That's the one thing there, just setting the scene physically in ruins. The other is that Superman actually kills General Zod. And it divides a lot of people's kind of opinions on that, because he's all about morality, isn't he? He never kills, like Batman.
Yeah.
That's why they're so similar. They'll never kill. They have very different ways of seeking out justice. But Superman has the power to kill, but always refrains from it because he knows he's better. Batman toys with it because that's just, his vengeance coming out. But he doesn't go that far because he knows what the pain of the death of his parents are when they're murdered in front of his eyes. But in the reboot, General Zod is effectively, beheaded or shot in the head with the laser eyes. And it's still at odds with the character and everything he stands for. So I think a lot of people struggle with that iteration of Superman. Doesn't really make sense. Henry Cavill, brilliant, I have to say, in terms of casting, but people didn't really get the ending, either because, just the sheer destruction, but also just the immorality of what happened. The comics have literally made absolute bank out of a character finding another way of beating someone. And this early on in kind of the origin story for him to kill just seems really, really strange. So yeah, that's my last one. A dishonorable mention, Man of Steel, back in 2013.
I'm going to round it off. Much the unpopular opinion of myself. It's
right.
The Mist.
Oh, okay. I recall this one. Go on.
So The Mist, also known as Stephen King's The Mist, is a 2007 American science fiction horror film based on the 1980 novella The Mist by Stephen King.
Yes.
Clues in the title. So this film was written and directed by Frank Darabont. The director revised the ending of the film to be darker than the novella's ending, a change to which King was amenable. Oh boy. So just to set the premise, it's all set in Bridgeton, Maine. You've got an artist called David Drayton and his wife Stephanie, and they have an 8-year-old son, Billy, who takes shelter in the basement of their lakeside home during a severe thunderstorm.
Okay.
The next morning, they're surveying the damage and they notice a thick mist advancing over the lake. So David and Billy leave for town with their neighbour Brent Norton, and they go to buy some supplies. So they get inside the supermarket and they watch police cars speed down the street, and a terrified civilian, Dan Miller, runs into the store and warns of a danger lurking within the mist.
Oh.
You can see where this is going. A siren sounds and store managers Ollie Weeks and Bud Brown close off the supermarket, and the mist envelopes the store. So it's a big, thick fog. The next morning, David and his group prepare to leave the store, but are stopped by Mrs. Commody, who demands that Billy be delivered as the next sacrifice. So the poor kid, he's probably about to be thrown to some nasty aliens or whatever's out there. Her followers threaten Billy, but gets shot and killed. This forces her followers to stand down at gunpoint, And outside, he and 2 others are devoured by the creatures, whilst David, Billy, Dan, Amanda, and Irene reach David's car. So they're driving through the mist, and David finds his home destroyed and his poor wife, Stephanie, brown bread.
Oh.
Yes. Devastated, he drives away from town, passing a colossal 6-legged beast and eventually running out of petrol. So he's got no means of escaping the mist, and the resigned group members decide to end their lives. So this is where it gets a little bit dark, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
David shoots Billy and the other 3 survivors with his 4 remaining bullets before leaving the car to be taken by the creatures. This is where it gets a little bit sickening. The mist suddenly dissipates, revealing the vanguard of a US Army armoured column that is in the process of exterminating the creatures and restoring order.
Oops.
Oops, indeed. You fucked up. Seeing that they also rescued those from the store, including a woman who left to get her kids, David, realising that he killed his son and friends for nothing and that they were just moments away from being rescued, drops to his knees, screaming in anguish at what he has done. It's controversial, twisted ending, but it's got its fans. Quite a few of them, actually. Was the lesson, patience is a virtue, so don't shoot your son in the face? I don't get it. Maybe. But if that's what they were going for, well, they failed. Ultimately, the message the mist conveys with its ending is, lol, sucks for you, dude. But when I put this on social media, Alex, sometimes I like to get the old fishing rod out to see what I can get.
Get a little nibble.
Got Andre. The mist has a bad ending, ? Fuck off. It was devastating, but great. And of course, someone called Neil agreed. And then Alicia.
Of course, Neil would agree, wouldn't he?
Yeah, bloody Neil.
Bloody Neil.
And then Alicia. Just because a movie doesn't have a happy ending doesn't mean it is bad. The Mist has a great, albeit awful, ending. I wish more films would end with a dark twist. Well, we got that with Avengers Infinity War. It shows that the heroes don't always win.
Yeah.
And that film was phenomenal. This was just dog shit. I'm sorry.
So anyway, as I was saying, continue drafting your hate mail directed to ontopicpodcast@gmail.com with the contact details of the socials in just a little bit. But yeah, I understand. And some people I think they might be felt kind of like a feeling of shock. I had it. Let's go pull this out of the bag. Not take anything away from the mist down, but very quickly, if I forget, Arrival, Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, spaceship comes to land. It's all about time, and they talk about time in different ways, and it's all about Amy Adams has flashbacks of a daughter she never had. Transpires, spoiler. She ends up having the child with Jeremy Renner. The child then dies of childhood illness, which is fucking dark and miserable and sad. And then it goes full circle. It's all about how time is a concept. We don't get it as human beings because we are simple. And the aliens are trying to talk to us about the concept of time and how it works and all the rest of it. And that's also got kind of like a very dark, sad ending. Because you think, she's always longed for this child. She dreamt about it. It's not flashbacks. You kind of get an inclination that they're kind of flash forwards, so to speak. But you always get a sense that she's always longed for this child. She doesn't know how she got it because she's single when she gets these flash forwards with the aliens. And then at the very end, then she's hand in hand Jeremy Renner, and then time goes fast forwards, and you see her child in hospital dies. You're like, fuck. I've literally just seen it's really quite upsetting, sad to see. And I kind of feel as though the mist is probably something similar. You think that it's going in a particular direction. You think that the ending's just going to stop there, and then actually they go, you know what? No, I'm going to put on your heartstrings. I'm actually going to pluck it out. I'm going to stamp on it. I'm going to shoot the kid in the head, and then everyone survives, and he's wrapped with guilt. Same with Arrival. You think that they've saved the day, they've saved, apocalyptic fallout of an alien war, And no, she ends up doing exactly what she thought she should do, and she ends up having a family that dies. So it's like, well, wow, that's horrible. Just play with our emotions, Dan.
Indeed. Well, we've got some good stuff from the listener. First of all, we've got regular listener lead. He says, well, War of the Worlds is supposed to be a slap in the human race's face. The ending is perfect and always has been. And The Mist, while I'll grant you, is one to open a vein to, it's braver than most and doesn't shit the bed. Do you know what? I don't mind being challenged if it's going to be nice.
Yeah. And fair, if they stay the course and they execute it, own it. And it does sound like it was owned. But it still doesn't make it right there, Dan.
No. Next up, we got Paul. He says, just finished watching The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. My God, I wish I'd never bothered. Oof. Next up, we got Sarah. She says, Sons of Anarchy. Not one I've watched yet, Alex. Yeah. I think it's on Netflix.
It is good. It is.
Without spoilers, that one left a pit in my stomach and made me feel really uncomfortable. It just seemed / felt massively out of character to do what he did, and then shocked face. I don't know what she's referencing.
I won't spoil it for you and any of the listeners. It is a fantastic show, and every season you have a what the hell is going on moment, and it is brilliant. I think this one suffered from the writer's strike. If you remember that, a lot of shows suffered, and a lot of good shows suffered as a result and didn't recover. I think this is one of them. So yeah, 100% agree.
And last up, we got my namesake, Dan. He says, Euro 2020 finale, mate. Started great. Wasn't keen on the ending. Yeah.
Well, unless you're Italian. Shout out to our Italian listeners. We know you're all listening. Hey, that's football, man.
Yeah, and you're still doing well. You're still undefeated, which is some feat. Fair play to the Italians. Good side.
There you go.
Well, that wraps up for disappointing endings and finales. But up next, we've got some good stuff.
We have.
We want to know, if you're watching it, your thoughts on season 3 of Sex Education, because that is a ding-dang delight.
Oh, yes.
Come at me. And we want to know your unsung heroes and your misunderstood villains. And we've had some good stuff so far.
We have, yeah. Who should have got the limelight? Who doesn't get enough praise for saving the day? And who was a little bit evil, but actually you totally get where they're coming from. And there's a couple actually that fit the bill. And there might be some more obvious ones from recent cinematic history, but actually there's some really good ones I've had a lot of fun writing up on. So there might be some surprises in store.
Yeah, I've started writing my notes. I've got one misunderstood villain. It's a little bit of a curveball, but then one of our listeners has written in, and they've given us a good one. Think pirates and Disney.
Oh yeah,
that's all you need to know. And I'm not talking about Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh no,
back in the original days.
Yeah, I'm talking an animated film.
TikTok.
Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that rounds it up for another week. Better give you some contact details.
Yes, please.
We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at On The Topic Pod. You can email us on onthetopicpodcast@gmail.com. And if you follow any of our socials, I put a link in the description, which will take you through to Anchor. We can leave us a voice message like some of our listeners have done in the past, and you can be a part of the show. But Alex, we've also got a blog.
We have, it's onthetopicpodcast.wordpress.com. That's onthetopicpodcast.wordpress.com. On there is our beautiful ugly mugs, where you can go and see exactly what we look like and go, does he really look like that? Is he really that short? Does he really have that glorious beard? Amongst other questions, and we'll answer those. We've got a link to our partner merch company, Morbid and Mundane. Go and have a look, see what they've got to offer. Wonderful t-shirts and garments. They're at the bottom. You've got access to all of the episodes, so you can, You'll listen, no doubt, on the usual ways, which is by Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or Anchor, Spotify. I can name them all. We're on them all. But you can also listen there. So if you want it all in one place, you can listen to it on our WordPress. And there's also our mailing list where you have no excuse to not listen to one of our episodes. You can't miss it. So it's all there for you to read and peruse at your leisure. So go have a look, go have a listen, and subscribe.
It's wonderful stuff.
It is. But there we go. For another week, I have been left with a feeling of disappointment and longing. I've been Alex.
And I've no doubt left you with disappointment and longing. I've been Dan.
Always. And we'll see you next time.